Hello everyone. Welcome to Back to Ashes. This is Phoenix. We're going to try things just a little differently. I'm going to actually tone my voice down a bit and go back to a softer side of my voice. And as well, as you will see here on the screen, our elite members will be listed first. The rest of the subscribers from the channel will be listed at the end of the video. So, without further ado, it is time to go back to ashes. For once we arise from the ashes, we are a bigger, brighter, stronger, and a happier person every day. Sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack, or tuck it and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Ouija Stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. I'll read the first story, there will be an ad, and after that, there will be no more ads within this video. Disclaimer, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes. This past summer, me and my friend were on a spooky kick. You know, scary movies, sleepover games, midnight rituals. Just a bunch of stuff to freak us out. The ending of this kick was, of course, to play with a Ouija board. We bought it, then went over to her friend's house because she was house sitting and it was empty. We arrived, looked up rules, lit candles, and followed everything the internet said to do. At first, we weren't getting anything. We were both wishful thinking, I think, and were subconsciously moving it at first. It was going really slow and not making any sense. So we looked up what to do if nothing was working, and it said to take a break and come back to it. So that's what we did. When we came back, as soon as we did, the board started answering our questions. I am a former self-harmer and have a suicidal past, and things like that. The first thing that alarmed me was that it said there were 13 entities in the room with us. I asked how many were bad, and it said 12 out of the 13 were. The second thing was that it spelled out my last name. I kept asking what about it, and it finally answered that they liked me. I asked why, and it said, "You bleed," which I instantly just knew they were talking about the self-harm, which was terrifying. So we stopped, said goodbye and everything, and took another break. We came back and I asked if there was something that I should know. It proceeded to tell me a very huge secret that my friend was keeping from me. She tried to stop, and when she did, it gave me even more details about what happened. We stopped then because neither of us could handle it anymore. She threw the board away in a McDonald's dumpster and tried to not think about it. About 2 weeks later, the board was back and in my friend's mom's back seat. No idea how it got there. My friend knew nothing of how it got there, and my mom didn't even know we did it because we would get in huge trouble. After playing with the board for about 2 weeks, after I constantly felt watched and this deep, heavy feeling walking around in my house, I heard noises constantly. One time my phone glitched and distorted the voice on the other end, then shut off. A bang went off by my face one night that sounded like someone punching the wall as hard as they could, and hearing noises in the cupboard and opening it to find cups and bowls flipped over completely or on their sides. All of this went away though, and I rarely feel things, although sometimes that heavy feeling always comes back. When I was younger, I used to be obsessed with ghosts and all sorts of haunted shows. Now, I never particularly had a reason to believe my house was haunted, but One day, my brother came home claiming to have found $10 out of nowhere. I'll never know for sure if he was just messing with me, but out of curiosity, it got the best of me. I asked him where he really got the $10 from. Stupid me assumed maybe a friend? Perhaps he stole it from my parents' wallet? My parents never claimed to have been missing any money. However, something they would definitely have voiced distraught about if they'd noticed we'd taken their cash. The story he gave me was that a young girl about the age of 7 had followed him into the school bus that afternoon. He'd never met this girl and had never seen her around at school, but she decided to sit in the seat in front of him. After riding the bus for a little while, she started to talk to him. Nobody else could see her, according to him, and other kids were giving him looks. Eventually, she handed him $10 with a note and then subsequently got off the bus at the next stop. I immediately assumed he was lying and laughed, of course. I asked him to show me the note, which he promptly pulled out from his room and passed me a tiny piece of paper. A shiver ran down my spine as the note wasn't in his handwriting, but in the handwriting of what I could only assume to be a young child that read, "I'll help you, but only this time," which I believe was in response to the fact that my brother was begging my parents for a Zelda charm bracelet for months, which they refused to buy him. Given that he had $10 now, he could just buy it himself though. Of course, me being me was extremely intrigued by this, even if it seemed absurd. I suggested we make a makeshift Ouija board and see if we can contact anyone. So we wrote the alphabet on a piece of paper and grabbed a necklace to hover above the DIY board. My brother was interested too, so he decided it could be fun. Mind you, I was in 6th grade and he was in 4th at the time. So any sort of movement from the necklace caught our attention and we immediately thought it was a ghost. After asking a few questions, the necklace began to move and shake. Either my brother was really good at tricking me by slowly sliding the necklace across the board, or it really was something paranormal. We were able to get a name. Kate. After asking dumb things like, "Did you watch me complete the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time?" and getting a yes, me and my brother decided to stop for the night after being creeped out. We'd never said goodbye before ending, though. Eventually, playing with the board would be a daily occurrence. We thought we'd made a friend and truly believed that someone was talking to us. Me and my brother decided to take things a step further and tried to record something. So, we got both of our tablets, placed them in front of our TV, and hit record. The first thing I asked was, if someone's here, move something in the room. Nothing. Okay, well, maybe the ghost is shy? We decided to ask the same question, but this time, we said we'll leave the room to give it time. We went downstairs for 5 minutes, and when we got back upstairs, our tablets had both fallen to the floor and stopped recording. Maybe a coincidence? I mean, things fall, especially when you aren't careful at placing them, so we brushed it off. In December of 6th grade, though, things got weird. I started hearing voices in my head, claiming that they were the ghost I was talking to while playing the Ouija board. I'd gotten so scared one night, I'd grabbed the Bible one of my religious friends had gifted me. I'm not religious, by the way. I would sleep with it. Especially, I told my mom that there was a ghost telling me scary things. I won't get into detail at some of it because it was a little graphic. She and my dad argued for a while about whether or not I was schizophrenic and if I should see a therapist. So Out of fear, I never told them I was hearing voices again, but I'd space out often, talking and having conversations with this thing I believed to be a ghost. Eventually, I forgot about the ghost and we no longer talked. I will never know what that voice was, if I was genuinely insane, if they were just intrusive thoughts. I was just glad for it to have stopped. Nothing necessarily paranormal has happened to me since, besides my TV. It turns itself on randomly in the middle of the night, or the feeling of someone pushing my legs with some sort of unknown force every once in a while. I sum it up to be just my imagination playing tricks on me now. But I do still have this looming feeling that ever since I've played with that Ouija board, I have some sort of spirit attached to me, following me. Not a bad one, but just a looming presence. Okay, so to start this off, before all of this, I thought Ouija boards and all were fake. But this experience changed my mind. Me and my friend, who we will just call Allie, decided to mess around with a Ouija board for fun. Neither of us actually owned one, so we made it out of paper. As you can imagine, it didn't look so good, but it wasn't terrible. We also somehow crumpled it up, but I don't remember how. At first, nothing was happening because both of us were laughing and spelling out fake stuff on the board. After laughing for a bit more, we actually got serious. It took a few tries, but something actually started talking to us. It was moving a bit slow at first, but got faster and faster. We both thought that the other one was moving it. We asked if it would give us a name, and it went to yes, but didn't actually spell anything out. We asked if it was a human, and it said yes. We asked when they were born, and they went to 4. My friend asked BC or AD, and it said BC. We both thought that it was weird, but moved on. We asked if he knew who Castile was. I watched Supernatural, so it was kind of a joke. And they said yes. I asked if they knew other angels, and they said yes. We then asked what they were again, and they spelled out angel. We asked what their name was again, and they spelled out Anoa. I asked it if it watched me, and it said yes. So I asked if it was a guardian angel, and it said no. By the way, I didn't want to go to the no all the way across the board, so we just said use the blank space as no. My mom walked in at some point, so we had to hide the board, of course. I don't think she would like me playing with such a thing. She probably knew something was up because we were acting super suspicious, but decided to ignore it. She then said she was leaving, so we were going to be alone. We got the board back out again and asked if it was there, and it immediately went to yes. At this point, we both knew it was a demon, so we asked and it started spelling out Zozo. So we said goodbye. But since we're both dumb and desperate, we went on. We said it was okay if it was a demon and continued talking. We asked if it was actually Zozo or not, and to go to D for different demon, and it went to D. We asked if Zozo was even real, and they basically said they couldn't say. We asked if demons have genders, and they said yes, and that they were a boy. After this, we started asking questions that others didn't know about, like what our grandma's name was. I asked if either of us had connections to dead people, and my friend said yes, and asked the demon which one he wanted to talk about, and they spelled out M. which was the first letter of her mom's best friend's name, who was dead. Allie then asked how she died. The police didn't know if it was a murder or suicide. And it spelled out, man. At the time, I didn't know the story, so she explained it to me. She then asked who it was, and it spelled out the girl's boyfriend. After that, my friend wanted to get off the topic, so we did. I asked if it knew my uncle's name, which I forgot because he's been dead for a while. It was one of those things. I'd see it and know. It spelled out C, and I remembered his name, which did start with a C. I asked if he knew what my grandpa's name was, and he gave a T, which was the first letter of his name. I asked if he could tell me how he died, and he spelled out cancer. I then asked if he could give me the first letter of the type, and he said L. He died of lung cancer. I asked if I was going to kill someone in the future, and he said yes. I asked for a name, and he spelled out my friend's name. I asked if he was joking, and he said yes. We kept joking around with him, like I asked if he was Satan, and he said yes. I said, "Are you sure about that?" And he said no. I asked if Satan had better things to do, and if he was a busy man, and he said yes. We also got him to spell out gay. When we asked why he watched me, he spelled out, why not? He also said he didn't know what the internet or school was. He couldn't give us an actual details of our future, and mostly just messing with us. We asked if he liked us and liked talking to us, and he said yes. At some point, we asked if Satan created demons, and he said yes. We asked him about other demons, and he said he didn't like them and didn't talk to them. We asked if he was lonely, and it literally flew across the board. It seemed like a sensitive topic. It also seemed to be predicting questions before we asked. My dad rung the doorbell, so we said goodbye, and my friend had to go. That was the end. We were talking to him for 2 hours. Was it dumb of us to continue talking to him, even after he admitted he was a demon? Also, the only time I really felt weird was when he spelled out, man. Was it even a demon at all? He was actually really chill and going along with whatever we said, even if he didn't know what it meant. Quick edit here. For all those saying my friend was messing with me, it's possible, but honestly, she's a terrible liar. Strap in. This is going to be a long one. Okay, so after all of this happened, we talked to him again a week later. I don't really remember what happened during the conversation, but I'm pretty sure he mentioned he was now attached to me. I didn't really care though because nothing bad happened. We talked to Anoa a few more times before something weird happened. He was acting strangely, so we asked if it was a different demon. It said yes. Cue basically the same combo that happened with Anoa originally. He admitted to being a demon and said his name was Mazam. He joked around more than Anoa and was a bit more aggressive. They both ended up being attached to me instead of my friend, probably because I had more of an open energy. Anoa and Mazam didn't like each other and argued a lot over who got to talk to us. The first time he talked to Mazam, he started spelling something out, so we stopped him and asked if it was really that important. He said yes, so we started to write out what he spelled. He spelled out my first name and wrote sad. We both were a bit freaked out and asked if we could look up his name. We knew Mazam wasn't their real name, but just wanted something to call it by. we found a YouTube video. The video was kind of cringy, but ignore that. If you don't want to watch the video, this is why it freaked us out so bad. The video mentioned being sad and Mazam spelling out sad. I get it sounds kind of stupid and could just be a coincidence, but it still freaked us the hell out. For people thinking my friend knew about the video and just wanted to freak me out, honestly, she believes in this stuff more than I do. And she was way more freaked out about this. She wanted to stop, but we continued anyway. Nothing really important happened after that. Later, we talked to them again in my living room. They were switching between who talked and started arguing. They suddenly stopped talking, so we left. A week later, we tried talking to them in my room, but they didn't come. Instead, we got another demon. They said they were an incubus and gave a fake name, but I don't remember it. We ended up going to the living room in hopes Mazam and Anoa were still there. They were. Long story short, Mazam and Anoa were still fighting, but managed to kill the incubus. We were kind of upset, but didn't really care. I went to Universal and asked if they went with me. They said yes, and that they enjoyed it. I asked what Mazam's favorite ride was, and he said the Hulk. He said that they were riding along with me. Now, get ready for the twist. We got on the boat one day, and it didn't sound like either of them. So, we asked who it was. They said their name was Dominic. We talked to him and asked if we could have Mazim or Anoa, and at one point, he just left. Mazim came on the board, so we asked if he killed Dominic and what he was. Mazim said he was an angel and that Anoa was fighting him right now. We left so Mazim could also fight him. When we came back, Mazim talked to us. He was moving really slowly, even though normally he moves really fast. We asked if Anoa was okay. He said no. We asked if he was dead. He stopped for a moment and hesitantly went to yes. He said he was going to be next and we weren't going to see him again. That was the last time we heard from either one of them. Dominic then talked to us. We had our doubts and didn't believe Dominic was actually an angel. Other demons claimed they were angels, so why should we believe this one? It made him actually angry we didn't believe him. We asked if he had killed Mazam and Anoa, and he said he did. I then made a joke, comparing demons to cockroaches. This is important later. My friend said to send a sign if he was an angel, and he agreed. When nothing happened, we left. Immediately afterwards, we walked outside because I heard an owl. As soon as we stepped onto the porch, we were greeted with dead cockroaches. We continued, and there was indeed an owl in the tree. My friend looked it up, and in some cultures, owls are death omens. We believed him after that. We talked to Dominic a week later. He was still angry at us, even though we apologized, and said we believed him. We talked to him for a bit and asked about our futures. He said we have different pathways, and he can't say exactly what will happen. He did give some information about my friend's dad, though. We're not exactly sure if it's true, because my friend doesn't even know what happened. At one point, he also said Mazam and Anoa were high-level demons. He said he was going to watch over us and kill demons that came near us. We asked a lot of questions he couldn't answer. I'm assuming there's just some things they can't say, considering the demons did the same thing. He talked to us a few times after that. but not for long because he hates us. Soon after that, when we tried to talk to Dominic, some rude-ass demon came on instead. Whenever we asked for a name, he said DP. He wasn't answering any of our questions. At one point, he spelled out Omen. Dominic came on for a minute and just left. Like I said, he hated us. We went for a walk later and saw a dead bird whose guts were ripped out. Do you think the dead duck is related to the demon? Side note, we haven't used the Ouija board in a while because whenever we come on, it's the DP demon and he's annoying. Also, might be unrelated, but odd story. I was rummaging around on my desk and a nickel fell and went halfway under my closet door. I looked at it for a second and considered picking it up, but decided I'd do it later. I forgot about it. A few hours later, I was on the phone with my friend and was rummaging around on my desk again, and the nickel fell once more. I thought, that's weird. Didn't that just happen? And looked for the original nickel. I dropped and couldn't find it. So basically, the nickel suddenly reappeared on my desk, and I dropped it again. I don't think anyone else could have picked it up because number one, no one goes into my room, and two, it was almost under my closet, and there was no way someone could have just noticed it. This happened after the whole Dominic thing. A short backstory to my life. I've always been a relatively normal girl. I've always had friends. I'm just about to finish a higher education. I never had financial problems. I've never been seriously ill. Things just always went on smooth with my life, more or less. I never believed in the paranormal, but things that has happened to me this past year have made me doubt. I'll start from the beginning. I'll try to only share the most necessary information, since I don't want to put myself out there. About a year ago, me and my boyfriend spent a night alone in a pretty big house. We were sick of just watching movies or TV, so we decided to think of something different to do. The other night, we had been watching a horror movie about a Ouija board, and we had been talking about that none of us had ever tried one. Since neither of us believed in the paranormal, we decided to try it just for fun. We were kind of silly about the whole thing, making it something romantic instead of something serious. We turned off all the lights in the house, and I decided to grab a piece of paper to make the board. I Googled a picture of the board and copied it. My boyfriend turned on some candles, and I did a quick Google on how to do the whole thing. As I remembered it, I just clicked on the first link and read that we should take a glass, place it on the board, and with a finger on it, we should make the infinity sign for 10 times and then stop. I think I stopped my research here, somewhere, so this was all we did. We were sitting opposite of each other, and we started asking some questions. Nothing happened for the first 10 to 15 minutes. We were holding our fingers on the glass. The mood kind of left us, and my boyfriend started to get a bit silly. The weather outside was pretty bad this night, and the wind made a sound in the house wall outside. At this point, my boyfriend started laughing and saying, "It's probably Zozo. Zozo, is that you?" He remembered the name from the movie we had just watched. I laughed at his efforts to scare me, and I also said something regarding this. I do remember saying the name Zozo out loud. We had lost the mood at this point, and we started talking about doing something else. We just removed our fingers from the glass and started cleaning up. I took the paper of the board and started folding it because I didn't want the house owners to see it in their trash can. It was not our house. But in the last moment, I decided to bring it into our room and instead put it in our personal trash. Just because I was a bit embarrassed by the whole thing and wanted to make sure that no one saw it. The evening went on and eventually we went to bed. The next morning, I was about to start cleaning our room a bit, and I came across the paper of the board. It was clean and open. The foldings I had made the other day were gone. I asked my boyfriend about it, but he didn't take it seriously, again laughing and saying, "Maybe Zozo wanted to talk more to you." I grabbed the paper and looked at it, and in the corner was the word yes. It was written. The text was smeared out, like we had spilled water on it or something. I couldn't remember us spilling anything on the paper. We had a glass of wine when we were doing this, but this was no wine stain. It looked more like water had been spilled on it. We forgot about the whole thing and moved on with our lives, and I didn't think about the whole thing until last month. The thing is that, after this session, my life has changed a lot, and only to the worse. I don't want to give you any details, but I can give you an overview. My studies, that always went well, started going incredibly bad. I started losing relationships. My relationship to my partner also broke apart. I got very, very bad financial problems. Everything that had always worked out for me just stopped working completely. In addition, more or less, everything that could possibly go wrong for me did go wrong, to the point where people around me have started asking me where all of this bad luck is coming from. I take it pretty seriously when other people start to see things like that, since humans tend to feel more sorry for themselves than others do. I think you know what I mean by this. Bad habits I had have increased in intensity, and this bad luck I have is insane. Every teeny tiny thing that can possibly go wrong just goes wrong. I am often sick. You just have to take my word on this. This past year has been the worst in my life by far. For a normal person, the things happening to me should not be happening. We have a dog that very often just barks into nothing in our home. My boyfriend is often making jokes saying that we have a ghost. The other month, I decided to think about this a bit more, and I Googled it a bit. As I now understand it, we did a lot of things wrong that night. A lot. Especially when saying the name Zozo out loud so many times. I also started remembering that thing about the piece of paper, aka the board. It was just very, very strange since I so clearly remember that I was folding it to hide the text in the trash. We also didn't finish it up correctly. We just stopped. I've never been open to these things, but this bad luck in my life has gone so far that I'm open to anyone telling me the Ouija board session we had something to do with it. Worth mentioning is that my partner also experienced this to a certain extent. Things have been happening to him too, but not as much. It's mostly me. Since I don't have a lot of knowledge about this, I'm turning to you. Could it possibly be that something is attached to me? What could I do? I don't know how long I can take this. This has to stop. Please, give me all your thoughts and tips. I really, truly appreciate it. In 2011, I studied abroad in Dakar, Senegal, which is on the west coast of Africa. One night, After I'd been there for months already, I knew a lot about the culture. Some Senegalese friends of mine from the Dakar neighborhood where I was living invited me and another American to go watch their friend play in a soccer game at the city stadium. Not having had the chance to go to a sporting event at a stadium in Senegal yet, we eagerly agreed, and especially since it meant dodging homework. Once there, it was about what I would have expected, a large, unadorned concrete stadium in the middle of one of the neighborhoods. Fairly crowded, but not packed. It was a neighborhood match in which the teams from various neighborhoods faced each other in a tournament. Thus, loyalty was intense, and the stands were separated by team. Our team was supposed to be the better team, and it showed. The score throughout the game was 0-0, but our team was also pressuring the other one. It seemed like a matter of time before they scored and locked it up. Now, at this point, I should mention that Dakar, like many African cities, experiences power cuts frequently and seemingly at random. I should also mention that this was happening about 2 to 3 months after the rainy season was supposed to be over. While sitting in the stands, I happened to notice a bright red flash off in the distance amongst the buildings behind the stadium. It took me off guard. I had never seen anything like that before. I turned to my American friend and asked her about it, but she hadn't seen it. It was momentary. I waited for the sound of whatever it had been to reach me. I figured it was some kind of explosion, but no sound came. However, in those few seconds after the flash, when I was contemplating what it could have been to flash so brightly yet silently, two strange events occurred almost at the same time, within 30 seconds of each other. First, the stadium lights cut off. My first thought was, oh, just a power cut. Bummer. But I looked from our high-up position and saw that the lights of the surrounding neighborhood were all still on. But I became somewhat alarmed. Who had cut the lights? At the same moment, a torrential downpour started, seemingly out of nowhere. Again, it was not supposed to be raining at all this time of year. At this point, there is mass confusion, and I'm looking around the stadium to try to understand what may have happened. Outside the stadium on the street, I see what appears to be a riot developing. How it could have gathered so quickly, I do not know. No one had had time to file out of the stadium. By now, I am very alarmed of a stampede or any number of possible dangers. So, my friend and I made our way down to a quiet spot underneath the stands. When I asked my Senegalese friends what the hell was happened, they all nonchalantly explained, "Gris gris." For those who don't know, a gris gris is a West African term for a talisman, or sometimes simply a magic spell. It has a similar meaning in America, thanks to voodoo's influence. I had seen and heard of gris gris before, but always thought little of them. They seemed sure that the other team had visited a dark marabout, or shaman, beforehand to curse the game so that they wouldn't lose, since they knew they were the weaker team. Silly witchcraft, right? In that moment, though, I have to tell you, I had no explanation for what could have happened. All I had was coincidence. What was the red flash that made no sound off in the distance? Why had the stadium lights cut only and not the neighborhood lights? Why did it suddenly torrentially rain out of season, which totally stopped as soon as we walked out of the stadium's neighborhood? Again, all I had was coincidence. And that's still what I believe. But I tell you, that was one of the strangest phenomena I have ever witnessed. This all started a few years ago when I was deployed in Okinawa, Japan with the Marines. One night, a few of us got drunk and brought a homemade Ouija board, an MRE box, and Sharpie marker to an abandoned barracks that was supposedly haunted. All of the junior Marines decided to ask questions like, "Will I see combat?" or "Will my girlfriend marry me?" I decided to ask who we are talking to. The answer I received was ZD. We promised that we would talk to him the following Sunday. It never happened. The only thing I could think of to this day is that it is someone who died at the Battle of Okinawa in World War II. Nonetheless, I came home a few months later, and that's when weird things started happening. I am not a superstitious man. However, my wife is. The very first thing I personally started noticing was that my eyes would inadvertently start looking up at the top of the stairs. Then my dogs, when seated on the couch downstairs, would start barking fiercely at the top and middle of the stairs. This is when one of my junior Marines came into play. One day, I made mention of my dogs always barking at things I couldn't see, when John, a Lance Corporal who was there during the Ouija board incident, told me that he and his wife had begun experiencing things, such as him hearing someone call his name and no one else being in the house, to his wife, afraid to go into their bedroom due to something pulling on her hair as soon as she entered the room. My wife started talking about a malevolent presence she felt in our house as soon as it started becoming more present. She called me crying one day, stating that something dark and malevolent had woke her up. I went to work at around 5 and been very close to her face. This presence affected our marriage significantly when I told her that I did the Ouija board incident. She told me I summoned something or someone I wasn't supposed to. My marriage deteriorated the next few months to the point where we slept in different rooms. Apparently, the thing told my wife I won, right outside of my house. That was 3 months ago. My wife and I reconnected when I went to a different job school, and we were separated and realized that we indeed were the only ones for ourselves. She told me that she saw the thing again when she had taken a picture of herself, and the thing was behind her. I tried to upload it online, but she will not let me. That is how much she is afraid of this being. Since then, we have moved and have not felt the thing until tonight, when I started to type this story. I had the notion that it stopped following us until about the third paragraph, when my browser shut down. I said screw it until about 30 minutes later, when I started typing again. Once again, at about the third or fourth paragraph, when the door leading from the living room to the hallway to our bedroom opened up. I'm posting this story just to find out what I can do and if it truly was my fault. My best friend Meredith and I run a community theater. This year, I was appearing in a play alongside a man with whom I had never worked with before, Joshua. My character was a mystic, and because I was also costuming this production, I was on the hunt for interesting jewelry that I could wear on stage. Joshua mentioned an appropriate ring he owned. It was perfect. I slipped it on my finger and had been wearing it for some time before he mentioned his history with it. It was a remnant from his days dabbling in the occult, and he admitted to using it ritualistically. I immediately took it off and set it aside, but tried to laugh along. Joshua left that day for a pre-approved vacation without taking it home. I spoke with Meredith about it, and we tried to laugh it off as we cleaned up for the night. But we're superstitious theater people, so it made our skin crawl. In any case, I headed out, and she stayed behind to catch up on some production work. 2 hours later, I got a phone call from her in tears. She had been sitting on stage when an enormously tall black shadow walked across the back of the house. It towered larger than any human being and filled her with such overwhelming dread that she left through the back door, locked up, and immediately picked up the phone to call me. When we returned the next day, the building simply felt heavy, oppressive. Stepping outside was enough to chase that sensation away, but it would always return the second you passed through the doors. Actors fought quite a bit that week, over forgotten lines and missed blocking. A sofa set piece broke when an actress lay on the arm. Said arm had been held on with jagged nails, and she nearly pricked herself on them. People who had overheard Joshua talking about the ring started blaming it. Toward the end of the week, Meredith and I were sitting outside the building, too nervous to stay there too late. Through a window, we both saw a shadow block out the light before moving out of view. She asked me if I had seen it, and I said that I had. I walked her home that night. The next day, we dug some religious candles out of props and surrounded the ring with them. While it did not ease the oppressiveness of the place, we never saw anything else. Joshua returned, and I approached him. I told him some people heard about the ring's story and that it would probably be best if he just took it home, since it had everyone on edge. He did. Meredith and I stayed late after he went home that night, and for the first time in days, we could breathe. The theater felt light again. Nothing like this has ever happened since. 2 productions later. Now I still look back on this week with a grain of salt. I wonder if knowing the ring's story made us uneasy, and we all fed into our own mass hysteria and natural theater stress until it bubbled out of control. I don't know, but next time someone offers to bring me jewelry, I'll be sure to ask them how they came to own it. I have a Ouija board stalker. I know it sounds like a pretty weird situation, but it is exactly what happened. My friend was spending the night and we decided to get out our parents' Ouija board. I know, stupid, right? We did a lot of stupid things when we were kids. We thought nothing of it. It was a game by a company. We went down to the basement and lit a few candles, then started saying some pretty silly lines. We had no idea what to do as the directions were gone, and all we knew were what we saw on TV shows. We asked it questions about boyfriends and potential boyfriends and stupid girly things. Most of the answers were the other person answering in some way like, he loves you or he hates you, and the standard yes or no. We knew we were goofing off and doing it until we both felt the pressure of the planchette that neither of us created. It wanted to move to different letters that weren't related to the questions we were asking. At one point, it spelled out KILLED and DIE. Against my better judgment, I ask it, "Who are you?" ISEEYOU. I see you? I see you. I repeated what it said, and then we saw a shadow move across the wall. I wanted to just toss the damn thing in the garbage, but then it moved our hands again. INTHEWINDOW. It spelled out without either of us pushing the planchette. We both looked up at the little basement window and saw someone in a hoodie staring at us from outside. We couldn't see his eyes or his face, just blackness, like smoke swirling around in circles under the hood. The hoodie was a modern sweatshirt type hoodie, not like death or anything. We heard a laugh from outside the window, and then a scraping noise like someone was trying to get in. My friend and I screamed and ran up the stairs, leaving the board behind and the candles still lit. I guess maybe we either hit one of the candles as we ran out because the basement caught on fire. Luckily, my parents walked to the door just then, and my dad put the fire out before the house went up in flames. I guess it could have been someone stalking us through the window, but then, how did the board know what to say? We didn't even know he was there until the board told us. Perhaps it was some spirit warning us there was a creeper watching us. Or maybe the creeper was the spirit and controlled the board to scare us. My parents called the cops, telling them there was some weirdo looking into basement windows, but they never caught anyone doing it. Some families were also robbed that night. Sometimes I wonder if I should have thanked whatever was in the board for warning us. But to this day, we don't know if it was the guy controlling the board or spirit. We never touched the Ouija board or went into that basement ever again. And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these true Ouija board stories. If you like this new format, please let me know. If you like the softer voice, or if you like the regular narration style in which I normally do, sound off in the comments, if you will. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed this collection. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourself a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good night. Peace, love, and light to you all.